Ketchikan Public Library Advisory Board to order. So we'll go ahead and we do not have any new board members that we need to introduce. We'll go and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I would also like to do a land acknowledgement. We are on the Tlingit land. Would like to acknowledge and give honor and respect to traditional landowners, the Tlingit elders, and past, present, and future generations. We honor the relationship that exists between Tlingit Haida and Tsimshian peoples. All right, and if I could get a motion for approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I'd like to add something. Is it too late?
Okay,
I'd like to make a change under new business.
in new business. Okay,
I'd like to add something.
add,
Yes.
okay,
I'd like to make a proposal that like when a book is sent to the board to review, that we kind of collectively agree as a board that we should read the book before we make the vote on it. Each person on the board serving.
okay. So a discussion about,
Like a proposal, not like a policy, just kind of a rule that we kind of agree on.
okay,
Point of order.
yep, go ahead.
I'm curious to know what the rules are on adding unpublished agenda items that could take action, considering it's an advisory board.
Yeah, I agree. My inclination is that adding an item to the agenda after the agenda has been published is probably could be problematic, but do you have any guidance? Since it is a board.
I do not. I assumed that it was like council or
Mhm.
where you could amend the agenda. But truthfully, I don't know for a fact that.
Since this is a proposal, may I offer an alternative till we get a ruling on this one?
Mhm.
Is since it is a proposal that be woven into the discussion topics as we have them. Would that be a reasonable
Yeah.
compromise? All right. So let's do that. Okay. All right, anything else? All right, if I may get so no further discussion. Approval of the agenda. So who takes roll? Are we taking roll?
Oh, I'm doing notes.
Notes?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll take roll. So, you know what?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I don't do this often enough.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll take the roll.
and actually, before we do that, let me
Mhm.
back up.
Yes.
Before we approve the agenda, 'cause I don't see it on here, so I may have missed it. Maybe it's in the introduction of board members, but take roll call.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Exactly. So let's see, Echo Hawk,
Here.
Finnegan,
Here.
Nina,
Here, present.
Montgomery is absent. Govars,
Here.
Arnson,
Present.
Simon.
Here.
Dahl appears to be absent. Pilgrim.
Here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So now we are back onto the approval of the agenda.
Okay.
And discussion is closed, so now we're ready for the roll.
Okay. Arnson,
Yes.
let's see, Finnegan,
Yes.
Govars,
Yes.
Hops,
Yes.
Pilgrim,
Yes.
Simon, Yes. Okay. So let's see, the agenda is approved.
All right, approved. Thank you. All right, so now, next item, item 6 is for approval of the April 10th, 2024 meeting. Let me get a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
I move to approve the meeting minutes from April 10th, 2024 as presented.
Second.
Approve, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion. Go ahead and call the roll.
Okay. See, Finnegan,
Yes.
Govars,
Yes.
Ops,
Yes.
Pilgrim,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Arnson.
Yes.
Let's see, the minutes are approved.
All right, thank you. All right, so now we're gonna go and move on to item 7, public hearing on agenda item 12A. There is a request to move a book from the teen collection to the adult collection. The book is Gender Queer by Maya Kobabi, I believe. So after going through the reconsideration process, the person who submitted the request has asked that the board to conduct this public hearing. So we'll go ahead and go into any correspondence that has been submitted to the board.
There's been one letter submitted,
Okay, great.
so I will read that out.
Thank you.
So this is by John P. Pearson. Dear board members, I am contacting you in regards to new business item 12A before the board at tonight's meeting. I am not familiar with the book Gender Queer by Maya Kobabe, but I am very familiar with the crusade by one member of the board to override the decisions of our professional library staff in regard to the collection. Prolonged and divisive attention to similar items in the collection have burdened the board and city council in the recent past. The final decision in those matters have supported our library staff and have established that our community has a significant portion of young people who are interested in these items. The community has spoken out in favor of a collection that includes a wide range of topics that supports many lifestyles. In a general sense, this issue has been addressed in the earlier challenges. This crusade attacking the collection has lost its credibility. Please do not second any motion to move this book, nor vote for any motion that would. Thank you for your work in support of our library. Sincerely, John P. Pearson.
This letter was sent to me. She said she sent it to you.
Oh, okay.
So I will give you the copy.
Okay, I think, is this Cheryl's? Okay, I think, is this about the rating system?
I don't know.
Okay.
She
My
sent it to me and said that she sent it to you as well.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to read it during the general public comment, since it was about the rating system and not that I can see about gender.
I
queer.
didn't read it. I'm
Okay.
just giving it.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Is it okay for me to hold off and do it during general correspondence?
Yeah, I did read what was, that came in. It was sent, I did receive a copy as well and did not
Okay.
look like it was pertaining to this particular topic.
Okay,
Okay, so I think general public comment, I think is appropriate.
okay.
And any other correspondence?
Not on this topic.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so we're going to go and move to public comment. And for public comment, anybody that wishes to speak is welcome to. There was a sign up sheet, so we'll check the sign up sheet first. If anybody would like to speak after we've gone through the sign up, those that have signed up, you're more than welcome to. We are going to ask that you do keep your comments concise into a 3-minute time frame. And as with any comments, just remember that we are a community, and at the end of the day, we all are going to look out for each other and are be happy to see each other when we see each other in the street. So first, public comment. Anybody that signed up?
See, no one has signed up.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on the topic of the book Gender Queer by Maya Kobabe? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Darlene Dolomont Stenson. I say my whole name and you all know me as Darlene D. Stenson. I say Dolomont because it's my Canadian last name. I'm talking to you about this book.
Mhm.
because I'm Canadian, because I have two nieces, one of them a principal of a high school and the other one a counselor of a high school. Canada,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Maybe, would you mind putting the microphone a little bit closer just to make sure the public can hear, just in case? Perfect, thank you.
it seems as though the United States in their library and equality and generosity of information is following Canada. And I know this because I went to school there. I have family still there. I live the everyday problems of people your age's children. And those problems all have arisen from the generosity of information given to people far too young to have it. There are statistics throughout Canada in every single province, and their largest problem right now, 20 years after the decisions were made, the decisions that you all are making right now. It's like a funny show, deja vu. I can't believe I get to live this again. But you should check these stats because it's one thing to provide the information. It should be provided for everyone that has an interest. There should not be a closed door. Reading and knowledge is crucial for the advancement of our society and life. The time in which you present and put this is critical. It is more critical than we know, but I ask all of you as representatives of our community in different areas, children to grandchildren, read the book. As this young lady said, it's mandatory that every one of you read this book because this particular book is just completely ridiculous. It's written for an 8-year-old, for a 16-year-old. It's just, but if you do your due diligence, there are really good books out there that will educate these children, that will be the reference that they need, not stupidity, not something that's really arguing about, will probably never be checked out of the library. I'd be so shocked if it made one full checkout. But my point is, if you're going to do this, do it right. Find the books that the girl or the boy is confused and it has an answer for them, or there's hormones going on, something. Just not these random ridiculous books that make no sense and offer no credibility to the intelligence of the people that we're supposed to be giving. It's not an educational book. There's nothing offering in it at all. So again, I'm going to say the same thing. As advisory boards to the library to which we need, think about what you're doing now, because whatever you do now, 20 years from now, every psychologist around town is going to get a pocket full of dough to correct. And that is proven statistics. So do yourself a favor. Think twice before you make these big decisions. Thank you for listening. And I really do thank you all for stepping up and serve. As you know, I serve, and it's a tough place to be. So I appreciate you listening. There is a whole lot of us out here that feel the same way. You might not see us all. We pay attention. We watch your movies after. But you're not alone. We are watching, and make the right decisions for Ketchikan. That's all inclusive for everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, all right, thank you. And let's see, the floor is still open. If anybody else would like to speak on the topic of moving the book Genderqueer by by Maya Kobabe. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. And we'll move on to item 8, which is general correspondence.
See, we do have general correspondence. See, so we have a letter from Cheryl Yaisley, and see, it is as follows. Good evening, LAB members. I am writing to you to follow up with the letter I wrote in April and a series of emails between myself and Pat Tully. I am disheartened to hear that the idea of having a rating system has been shot down. However, I am not surprised at all and honestly expected that this would be the case and said as much in one of my emails. It has been made clear all along that anyone who is against sexualized books for minors have no rights and certainly do not deserve a voice in our community. I am ashamed and disgusted at the way the parents and concerned citizens of Ketchikan have been treated. That is, social media posts, responses to complaints, responses to the book requests, city council meetings, borough assembly meetings, and other events that are targeted to gaslight these community members who are exercising their rights to protect minors under the age of 18. No one is saying, off with their heads, ban these books. They're simply asking for a rating system or moving sexualized books to the adult section. I am proud of anyone who stands up for the removal of any sexualized books from the children's section to move to 18 and up section, regardless of what class of people it speaks to. I will support them and continue to speak out about this. I have been watching the tearing down and shame targeted at the parents, community members, and anyone who has come forward against these books. I would love to call in for a meeting since the board I sit on meets at the same night each time, but that is not allowed. You have made it nearly impossible for the public to safely express their concerns and made this about specific groups. I will keep speaking out. I will keep supporting that parents and guardians have the right to protect their children. I am not going to be silenced or give up this easy. I will look for opportunities to support healthy books, healthy people, healthy families, regardless of what class they come from or their sexual orientation, which is none of my business. Respectfully, Cheryl Yaisley. So, and she also has a copy of the April 10th book, or April 10th letter to the Library Advisory Board.
Okay, and that was read at April 10th.
I believe it was read at the April 10th meeting.
Any others?
That was the only letter I've received.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and move to item 9, which is public comment. And this is general public comment for any issues regarding the library that you'd like the Library Advisory Board to take into consideration. So again, I'm asking that you keep your comments concise. It is a 3-minute, we're asking you to keep it within 3 minutes. And do we have anybody that's signed up for general comment?
No one has signed up for general comment.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we'll go and open up the floor to anybody else that would like to speak. The floor is open. Great, thank you. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. And that was 9, yep. And we'll go ahead and move on to any reports. So we have first report, the Friends of the Library, Ms. Hobbs.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, sound good.
All right. So our report is we started doing collections at the U-Haul over by the Trooper Station, and we have successfully collected and sorted lots of books. And we're doing another collection this Saturday from noon to 2, same location, just look for signs. And we'll also have a booth at this upcoming Blueberry Festival where we will be selling books as well.
Oh. Great. Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Hobbs? I do have one question.
Mhm.
So if any in the public would like to contact the Friends of the Library, volunteer, donate, assist in any way, what would be the best way for folks to get a hold of the Friends of the Library?
I believe we're starting to create a volunteer list, especially for the October book sale. So part of the booth for Blueberry will be volunteer signups to get a roster of people willing to volunteer for things. So collecting email, phone numbers, things like that. So find us at Blueberry would be best, or you can message the Facebook page.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, excellent. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Okay, next will be City Council.
There's no report to the Library Advisory Board from City Council for this quarterly meeting.
Okay, thank you. And anything from the Borough Assembly?
the Borough Assembly for this meeting.
Okay. All right, anything from our team representative?
Nothing for the summertime.
Sure, yeah, thank you. And from our esteemed librarian.
See, so I have a report in your packet, and I've restructured the report a little bit. So on one page, it starts off with strategic plan goals and then goes on to ongoing activities, sort of activities in each area of the library that happen on a regular basis. And then on the other side, I have highlights so that are specific to this past quarter. And so just some things that have occurred that are of note. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I also wanted to talk, and I don't think I've got this fully explained in the highlights section, that we've kind of undergone some personnel changes, some shifting of personnel since our last meeting. Back in March, mid-March, Kelly Johnson, who had been our office manager for over 30 years, she retired. So we set up an internal, what is it? In-house posting. And Robert Rice, who had been our library assistant too, and he's right there. He is now our operations manager, and that's a position that's replacing Kelly Johnson's position. So we're very happy about that. That freed up Robert Rice's library assistant 2 position. And so in June, we did another internal hire and hired Gail Brooks, who was library assistant 1 to be library assistant 2. And so she started just a few weeks ago in that position. And that freed up Gail Brooks's 39-hour-a-week library assistant 1 position. And you are one of the first people to know that DeMello has just been hired for our full-time 39-hour, well, almost full-time, 39-hour-a-week library assistant 1 position in adult services. We are really thrilled. We're thrilled about DeMello and about Robert and about Gail. And so now what we have left, the position we have left to fill is a 21-hour-a-week library assistant 1 position. And we will be pursuing putting the posting out for that position.
Oh, great.
So yeah. So yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Congratulations, everyone. That's fantastic. Okay, very good. Thank you. I had one question.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before I jump in, anybody else have any questions for Ms. Todd?
I have a question about you noted the Pride Month activities for
Mhm.
children's and tweens and teens.
Mhm.
Were there any for adults?
See, were there any for adults? I think the
Bingo was adult.
okay, bingo is adult.
Is there a reason that we have more children's than adults activities for Pride Month?
No, I think we tend to have a lot of children's activities during the summer, just because the kids are out of school.
Any other questions? I do have one question.
Mhm.
I know that during the summer, there was the summer camp with the rec center
Mhm.
and trying to coordinate all of that.
Mhm.
And for next year, has there been a kind of a conversation started to kind of prepare both organizations with maximum capacity, whatever that looks like?
Right. No, we haven't spoken to the rec center. I understand that they're very busy with summer camp.
Yeah, I know.
So it probably will be after the end of summer camp.
Okay.
And the end of our summer reading programs.
Okay.
And then we'll speak to them and see whether they want to change anything about what they've done this year, and whether they want to do anything, whether they're interested in collaboration with the library next year.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question. So I know the tag group gets to make a lot of decisions regarding like events and stuff and like what they would like to see.
Mhm.
Did any of them ask for like pride events and stuff? Did they ask for and like give input on that? Okay. I was just thinking about all the tween events and I was like, I'm betting someone was asking for that.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
The teen advisory group, or our tag group, was very vocal in asking for having pride events and having a pride display in their section of the library. One of the big things that they were really super excited for was the makeup event that we partnered with the KPA for. So that was one that they had started talking about and thinking about way early on, and we were able to connect with the Catch Can Pride Alliance and make that happen. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions for the library? All right, thank you. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to.
Do we need to acknowledge June so that?
Oh, we do need to acknowledge June. Thank you. So.
That was a lot to shade.
So Miss June, welcome. So recognizing that Miss June Dahl has joined the meeting. Thank you. All right, and so we'll go and move into unfinished business. Summary of changes in the collection development policy, Miss Tobin.
Yes. See, so I wrote a covering memo to all of the changes that were made, and that is in your packet, along with 2 versions of the new collection development policy. The first version is the version with all of the changes that the board recommended and that the librarians made, noted in the policy. And then after that, just a version of the policy that just includes all of those changes. So it's just written out. But so back in April, let's see, Lisa Pearson, Amy Tupfer, and myself met as the professional librarians in the library. And we reviewed the collection development policy and the changes that the board has recommended. And we approved almost all of the board's recommendation, with the exception of 3 very small changes in wording. And then we also made several changes of our own, mostly considering changing things about outdated collections and formats, and simplifying that wording. So there are several changes that are now part of the collection development policy. And on page 1, anything in red are changes that the board recommended. Anything in yellow are changes that the librarians recommended. Truthfully, I think that's about all. I know we spent an awful lot of time on all this. And so I guess I'll just move to, does anybody have any questions or concerns about any of the changes that have been made in the collection development policy?
Couple clarifying.
Sure.
I was just curious to know why you took out the word of America regarding the Constitution.
Oh, let's see. I figured it was when it said the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, I didn't know whether of America was necessary. And we could say the United States of America, the Constitution of the United States of America. We could put it that way. So I thought, we just thought taking out of America was not needed to make the meaning clear.
Any other questions?
I just, yeah, I don't. It just seems strange to just remove the Constitution of America. But
Let's see. So
I guess you're right. I mean, like, what else could it be, right?
yeah, especially since it says the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, and
'cause it says United States.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was curious to know, there, on that same page, a little
Mhm.
farther down,
Mhm.
there was the list of the formats. And I was just curious why that was taken out.
Because the formats increasingly are changing,
Yeah.
and some of the major ones, you know, are pretty much the same. But things like even DVDs, definitely compact discs, and other things. We thought that the less detailed we were, the less often we would have to change to keep up with ever-changing formats.
Thank you for that. And I just wanted to say thank you for adding this, and I liked how you color coded it. So that was nice. And I was just curious about the section on page 3, where the Alaska Court System Library was taken out. Is that because it's not available anymore?
Right, yes. Yep, that was it.
And I think that was all my basic questions.
Any other questions?
I had a couple of questions.
Sure. Yes. Ms.
On page 2 under resource placement,
Mhm.
is it after that was changed to before?
Yes.
So what's the thinking behind that?
Well, I think it's just when the librarians had our meeting, their process is that before they make a decision to order a new item, they make a preliminary determination of where it would be. So that's just kind of more a descriptive, that better describes what their process actually is.
So first they determine where it's gonna go and then they decide to order it?
Mm-hmm.
Just seems odd to me. Anyway, on the next page, it said there's an addition of labeling,
Mm-hmm.
library sanctioned labels. What are some examples of those sanctioned labels?
Let's see, mysteries, romance, westerns, science fiction, fantasy, those kinds of things.
When it says library sanctioned labels, are those? Well, I'll ask you, what does it mean by library sanctioned?
Oh, those are just the standard labels that we've selected, because we feel it would be most useful for.
And those aren't put on by Dewey Decimal System or anything
No.
like that. This is something that the library is putting on
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to what another library might do.
Right.
Is there a reason that it was specifically added?
Oh, we just wanted to make that clear.
Okay. And then one other one on page 4,
Mm-hmm.
it says there's an addition of the displays.
Mm-hmm.
What are some examples of the displays?
Oh gosh, they vary widely. I'm trying to think, what are the displays up right now? I think we have dystopian fiction, which is developed, a display of dystopian fiction. We have staff reads, which I think this month is food. Culinary, yes. Oh, that's right, because that's Robert. Okay. That's Robert's display. We have displays across from the circulation desk, which change as particular days come up. And I can't remember right now what's up there right now. We also have displays in the teen room of books on various subjects, and same thing with in the children's room. We always have displays celebrating Father's Day, celebrating 4th of July, that kind of thing.
And those are internally generated by the
Yes.
library staff.
Yes.
And that, just again, is there a reason that it was specifically added?
It needed to be somewhere. We weren't especially, it doesn't especially fit with collection development, but if there was no other policy that it particularly fit into. So we decided we would put it here.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, it didn't quite fit, that's why I
Mhm.
was wondering, because it doesn't quite fit with the collection.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. And so that was item 11A. So we'll go and move on to item 11B, report on staff research into resource rating systems for minors.
Yes. Let's see, get to the right place here. B. Okay, so at the last library advisory board meeting, there was a request that the library, that I do research into rating systems that have been implemented at other libraries and also elsewhere. So I started with the Ketchikan Public Library in developing this memo, our mission statement, just to kind of set what our mission is. Then I went to the American Library Association. They have two interpretations of the Library Bill of Rights. One is specifically on rating systems, and one is on labeling systems. So I quoted from each of those interpretations in that memo. Then I looked at rating systems that are in place for movies, for video games, for certain, I want to say magazines, but I don't quite mean that. And looked at the rating systems that they have in place and how they, what criteria they use to rate the materials that they rate. And that brought me to subjectivity in rating systems, which is on page 2. And I was struck by when you actually dig down deep into each of these kinds of ratings, how it becomes more subjective the deeper you go into it. So when a movie is rated for mild violence and sexual situations, that how much, when you really look into how those ratings are determined, how much it's dependent on who's actually doing the rating. And how complicated it gets when you try and make it objective, an objective number of violent situations, specifically what kinds of violence, that kind of thing. And the same thing with sexuality and language and drinking and drug use, that kind of thing, that it gets more subjective the more you look into these systems. So there are a variety of systems out there, and some are actually community reviews, things like Goodreads, even Amazon rating systems. They are rating systems and they do average those up, but basically they're based on community input. So I ended up by contacting first the Durlead group. The Durlead group is a group of directors of the public libraries of the 20 largest municipalities in Alaska. So I emailed them and I said, so how many of you have implemented a rating system or have been directed to implement a rating system? And of the 8 libraries that replied, none had implemented a rating system. Then I distributed a survey to the Library Management Group, which is a private Facebook group containing over 10,000 librarians who are members from around the country. I received 360 responses to that survey. And I basically, it was very simple. I asked whether or not the library had considered or implemented a rating system for teen and children's books in its collections. And if they answered yes, I asked them how they had developed and implemented their system. So all responses were anonymous because of I didn't want any library to feel that they were exposing themselves to criticism by answering a certain way. So I made it all anonymous. So of those 360 responses, 357 indicated that they had not considered or implemented a rating system. 2 libraries answered that they had considered or implemented a rating system based on an existing system. And I think the existing system was the BookLook system. And 1 library answered that they had been directed to implement a rating system, but had not yet implemented it. Looking at that, looking at the back and forth we've had in Ketchikan over the books that have been requested to be reviewed or requested to be moved, my conclusion was that rating systems are subjective necessarily, and that because they're subjective and because the library has a responsibility to serve the entire community in Ketchikan, that the library implementing a rating system would not be advisable. Now, instead, what I'm proposing, let's see if I've got it here somewhere. I'm proposing that we have a brochure available with links to various rating systems. There are a variety out there. I'll never find it now. But
is it?
yes,
Yeah.
that's the one. That's it.
Sure.
So basically, I've got 8 rating systems. I came up with a longer list, but a lot of them are no longer being updated. So these are the ones that appear to still be live systems that are actually being updated with new titles. So we can easily put those in the brochure where we keep other brochures in the library. But I don't feel that it would be a good use of the library's time, and I don't feel it would be a good service to our patrons to implement a rating system.
Thank you. And it's obvious you and possibly members of your team as well did a tremendous amount of work on this. So thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Tully regarding the research on the potential rating systems for minors? Questions?
I don't really have a question. Maybe I do, but
Or
I
comments?
just wanted to say thank you for all the information and the thoroughness of it being put together and being presented. And I appreciate this brochure tremendously as a parent and as a citizen. So thank you for all of your work on that. There another question, but I'm not sure that really applies to this moment. So I'll hold that one. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have some questions.
Sure, that's fine.
Is there a reason that you made a decision? I wasn't aware, maybe I missed that, but I wasn't aware that the request was that you make a decision.
Oh, well, I think I probably just took it upon myself to make the decision.
So is that something that you're telling the library advisory board that you have decided and the discussion is closed?
Not that the discussion is closed, but I have decided.
So what would be the difference then? If you
Well,
decided,
I-
then the discussion seems to be closed.
I welcome hearing people's points of view on this. But I felt very strongly that after the research that I did, that there was a clear conclusion and that I might as well conclude that.
So then I guess there's no reason to put you and anyone else through any discussion if you've made a decision. That's what it seems like to me.
like I said, I'm always interested in what people think about, things.
And if I may, I don't mean to interrupt, but I think if I may just, the library advisory board is staff doesn't work for the board. Staff works for the city, and all we can do is advise. So I just want to make sure that there is that line, is that the board itself, the staff doesn't necessarily have to answer to the board. But if we would like to make a decision, we can make a vote, bring it to the city. City can then direct staff. So I just want to make sure that there's no confusion there. Thank you. I don't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead. I mean, what is it? What were you trying to say with that comment?
Oh, just making sure that there's no confusion, especially for any public that's watching, is that the staff of the library does not necessarily answer to the library advisory board. Is that the library advisory board takes information, we vote on it, but the staff decisions are their own, and the staff answers to the city. So I just want to make sure that that's very clear to any of the public that's watching. And also, I think it's important for us as the board. But I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just want to make sure that.
No, and that's fine. My question is, what is the process? We, as a board, asked that research be done. But what this says is that a decision has been made. So what I'm trying to clarify is the reason for the discrepancy. If we asked for research, why do we have a decision? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. If I may, so that, I guess, for something like that, Ms. Dahl does have has a question. So to answer that, I believe, and I don't want to be too out of order here, so forgive me, is I believe that the statements that I made kind of answer that. So maybe I didn't articulate it well, so maybe I'll give it some thought. And so I apologize if that was not the case. But if that is the question, then maybe we can direct that to the city manager, if that's all right. And thank you. I feel like you heard us have a procedural question earlier, and they were like, oh, they need help. So you came down. So I appreciate it. But are you available to answer that question? I appreciate it.
I think to clarify for Ms. Simons, obviously Pat completed your directive, which was to complete the research. She's made her recommendation. And if there's other discussion that needs to occur, then absolutely would occur. But just to reiterate what Mr. Echohawk had mentioned, it's again advisory. So I'll give an example of our Port Harbors advisory board. They had an initiative they wanted to pursue through city council, had that discussion, actually had a public hearing, got some feedback, and decided, no, we're not going to recommend to city council that this process be changed. And in other directives they've made recommendations to city council and came to our rates. They were part of that process. But again, ultimately, those directives come from myself or from the city council to the staff as far as getting works and initiatives based on your recommendations.
Thank you.
Question?
Sure. One more, then I'd like to go to Ms. Dahl. Yes.
Okay. So what is for clarity, what is the relationship between the board and library staff? As far as I understand it, the board is advising the city council, you, city manager, and the librarian. It's not clear. I assume it's head librarian. Is that correct?
Correct.
Go ahead.
If I could just add on, but only as a collective board, only if we all agree on a proposal through the vote, and then that proposal then goes up the chain, it's considered, and then you decide whether or not it's sent back down to the library.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So was this that? as far as I understood, the board, the four hands was the request for the research, correct? Was that right?
For research, that's what I understood,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
yes. And what I would add is, when I did that research, at the, request of the board, that led me to, the decision, that we would not implement a rating system. And I think it would be disingenuous of me not to have included that in the memo.
I understand.
Mhm,
I have kids,
mhm,
and if I make a decision, then they understand what that means.
mhm.
There's just no reason to continue and and ask questions if a decision has been made and it's done. That's why it's out of respect. If you've made the decision, then there's no reason to talk about the rest of it, is what I mean.
Oh, I think it's always good to hear from others. You know, so even so, I've made a decision, but you're the library advisory board, and I'm interested in what you have to say.
No, I'll let you go ahead. I can ask questions after.
Well,
you
thank
go ahead and move.
All right, Ms. Dahl?
I wanted some clarification myself, so I looked at the April minutes. Ms. Arnson asked for 4 hands to recommend that the library staff do research into an objective rating system, and there were 4 hands. So that is what the library staff did. Then there was a motion to discuss a proposed rating system that failed. So I'm thinking, was that we're never going to discuss this, or just at the April meeting? So that's my thought.
Right. Okay, right, but yeah, I think it was just at the April meeting, specific to that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Looks like,
I have
yeah.
a comment,
Mhm.
moreover. So it says here you decided not to implement a rating system, which is your decision. I think that there's definitely still an open discussion on it if someone approached it. I mean, you've made decisions on keeping a book where it is, and we discuss it here. I don't think that her making a decision as the library director means that we can't talk about it. Is that like
Correct.
okay?
And I'll give you an example. If Pat has created a brochure, but perhaps you want to see a QR code on the children's library section where people can scan it. That's a suggestion that absolutely can be part of this discussion and is very welcome. You know, if I'm a parent and I want to go to, I can't remember, there's a website I use before my kid checks things out. So I can't remember it off the top of my head because it's the end of the day, but that could be a part of your discussion, is how to make that easier for parents to find those tools.
Any other questions or comments?
I have more, but is
Okay.
anyone else?
Oh, and anybody else?
If that's okay.
Okay, yep, absolutely.
One of them is actually a comment, not a question. You'd said that libraries' explicit or implicit adoption, enforcement, or endorsement of any of these rating systems violates the library Bill of Rights.
Mhm.
And I have said before that, brought up the fact that this is Ketchikan's library, not the ALA's library. And I was told repeatedly, no, they're not making policy.
Right.
Now they're making policy.
No, they are providing guidelines, which as professional librarians, we're saying, yes, that makes sense. That makes sense for us. That makes sense for libraries in general.
And I understand, I'm just making a comment.
Mm-hmm.
You said it, and you had also put down that no matter how detailed the rating system, there's inevitably individual interpretation based on one's belief and values. How is counting swear words, for example, subjective?
Define swear words.
And that would be the step, would be obviously to define them, but how would that, once you have that list, what is subjective? I'm not understanding what you're seeing subjective about.
Right. So what happens is you say, okay, we're going to define what are the swear words. So I'm going to define that for one thing. I'm going to create the list. And if people don't agree with me, and there may be people who don't agree with every word on that list, that's my subjective determination of what is is an objectionable word and what's not an objectionable word.
But you list the words, for example.
But that doesn't make it objective. That just makes it my subjective list of words I find objectionable.
So what you're saying is subjective isn't counting the words.
No.
It's putting the words down.
It's determining which words are the words that we're going to count.
And that precludes doing that because someone has to determine that.
Yes, and that's a judgment. That's a judgment call that one person's list is not going to be another person's list.
So then nobody gets a list, basically.
Everybody has their own list.
Actually, you don't because we're not allowed to do it. But anyway, moving on.
Mr. Chair, if I may make a comment to that in relation to the city council. Because there's a subjective system, it can be prone to bias. And our council is very, very clear that we want to avoid any way that we can unintentionally disadvantage certain points of view. So if I, in my vernacular, perhaps I've got a more urban inner city. I grew up on a farm, so curse words were part of our common language. If I'm going to discriminate against a certain viewpoint because I'm limiting under a subjective opinion, that goes against what we want to achieve in our Equal Rights Act with the City Council. I actually have one of my agenda items, future agenda items from one of our council members, is to prohibit any sort of bias in many of the city operations. And I haven't even finished that because it's such a complex issue, but that's something from our city council that they've directed as a priority for the council.
Thank you.
And I guess I'd answer that by saying that then that leaves everyone else out who wants something. But anyway, you talked about the email and the survey. Can we get copies of that?
Oh, sure. I can provide copies. I think I've got one copy with me. I didn't lose it.
I mean, you can send it. You don't have to do
Okay.
it now. Okay. I was just wondering if we could get copies of that.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? Great, thank you. Okay, so thank you for that report. Again, it is clear the work that you and your team, I don't know if other folks were involved, but a lot of
Oh,
folks
yes,
put in a lot of work on this. And I think this speaks volumes to when the library advisory board does give direction that the folks are putting in the work. So thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Item 12A, board discussion and recommendation regarding a request to move book from the teen collection, move a book from the teen collection to the adult collection, Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe. So new discussion on the topic and any questions or comments to begin the discussion?
Does this require a motion?
Oh, it does require a motion. Yes, thank you. So yes, is there a motion on the table to open up discussion on moving the book from the teen collection to the adult collection, Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe?
So what was the motion that you're asking?
If somebody would like to make a motion to move the book from the teen collection to the adult collection.
Or to have a discussion?
Well, it would be to move it. It would be is the item. So if there is a motion to move the book from the teen collection to the adult collection, then now's your time to make the motion.
And I would move to do that. What wording you're looking for, I want to make sure.
Sure. So the wording is regarding a request to move a book from the teen collection to the adult collection. The book in question is Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe, and you would like to make that motion, correct?
So moved.
So moved.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a move and a second. So now we are open up for discussion. Anybody would like to any discussion on the topic?
Obviously, I have discussion, but I will let others go first.
I just seconded it because I wanted to have the discussion
Sure.
Primarily. And when I was going through, the requests and knowing a little bit about the history over the last year of the book challenges, My concern goes back to what our speaker actually was talking about tonight regarding the sexualization of children. So I just remember like growing up here, and there weren't books about specific body parts or activities, and at least and there were, but they were more, you could get them if you wanted like body books or educational books or how the human body, how it works kind of things. But my concern is that it seems like the collection is growing, and I don't think it's a crusade to shine light on these books. I think it's important for our community to know what is in our library, and maybe you'll get more readers if they know about the books that are in there. So to me, this is never a waste of time. If a citizen has a concern about something that is in the library, then that's what the staff is there for. That is what we are here for. That is why the council funds the library. One thing that I noticed when I was going through everything and I was going back and reading the strategic plan and everything for the library is that I didn't see a whole lot about reading. And there's a little, there's some, I think the last paragraph talks a little bit about access to information and things like that. Sorry, I'm a little disorganized here. But the thing on the mission statement, you know, I'm hearing that we want equal access, we want to grow the community, have vibrance in community, and then all of the goals are about transforming. We're going to transform our collections, and we're transforming this, and we're transforming that. And I'm like, well, I mean, to me, I remember the library was a quiet, safe place where you could go, you could get access to information, and you could read it without being disturbed. And I don't have that experience in the library anymore. That's just me. And so that's been my experience. So when I go back and I read the mission statement, I'm like, okay, this is all the things is accomplished through development, maintenance, and promotion of materials. Okay, so how do they promote materials? Through displays, through posts, through activities, through all these things. Okay, great. That's all good stuff. But it seems like there is a higher prevalence of this type of reading material that I don't think is beneficial to our community as a whole. And that's why I appreciate the development collection clarifications that are coming down or that have been done. That's really good work. And so that is where I'm standing on this, is just the whole concept of the sexualization of children. I was 14 once. I know that they're not thinking about the things that they're watching adults do and talk about and see. I recognize that. So how do we have those safe conversations? It's not to be had in the library, in my opinion. It's to be had with their safe adults. It's to be had with their trusted inner circles. And so that's why I support moving this book to the adult section, is because I'm concerned that there's this proliferation in our society, and if we don't stop it, then in 20 years, we are going to reap the consequences of our decisions. If the argument is kids have access to this stuff everywhere, so why should they have access to it in the library? Then my response would be, if they have access to it everywhere, then why does it need to be in the children's library or in the teen section? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Ms. Pilgrim.
I definitely took a big look at this book. I read it in one sitting. And you know, me personally as a reader, I did not read anything that made me like jarred. I'm sure some of it is considered inappropriate. I was not put off per se. There's some things that I'm like, wow, that's a very like intense scene. But I wasn't thinking that I was disturbed or jarred. I know that can differ for every teen, every individual. And I also didn't relate to every experience in this book, and I knew people who did, so I reached out to some members of the K-High straight queer alliance, and I asked, would any of you be willing to read the book if you have the time? I know people have jobs. Two of the people who answered are actually at Sitka Fine Arts Camp right now, and so they're incredibly busy. And so they said, I'll find a copy online and I will read it as much as I can. And I think I got a few people back. All of them did ask that I not say their names. But one of the responses were, because I asked, that says gender queer, I wanted to ask queer teenagers, because I mean, that's what the book is about, a queer teenager, then queer young adult. And the responses I got from them were, that's actually pretty realistic. I experienced a lot of the stuff in this book. A lot of it I got was I experienced it younger, like middle school, and I was a little surprised by that. And specifically, they were talking about they liked how it was presented, because specifically one of them mentioned the talk of binders, which, for those who aren't aware, it's a almost like a sports bra, but it compresses the chest to make breasts appear like lessened and more flat, like a male chest. And some transgender people choose to wear that to make their presentation better. And they said, I like how they presented it, because they presented that wearing it too often isn't safe, that you have to make sure that you are safe no matter what. They said they liked how consent was talked about, that it can be removed, that it can be changed. They said as a teenager, it was weird to see not only a queer relationship, but also one where they could have feelings and they could decide about that stuff. They presented it to me in a different light than what I was read it, because I read it as, this is a different person with some things I've never experienced, and theirs telling me about this was, I've experienced this and I like how they put it. And they also told me they didn't like how some of it was put. They expressed to me that they didn't like the conversations with the parents in the book. They didn't like how, when talking to coworkers, it seemed like it was presented in a shameful way. And then I had the conversation of, well, this is like, I believe it's autobiography.
I think it is autobiographical.
Yeah, it's this person's story. And so thinking about it like that, they were feeling shameful. I mean, this was at a point in their life where they felt it was shameful. And so kind of talking about how that kind of lights the book a little bit. And then I also was reading this in my household, and I had it on my kitchen counter, and my brother, who is entering middle school, kind of walked up behind me and he was like, "What are you reading?" Because, I mean, he wanted to know. And I told him, I was like, "It's a book called Gender Queer." He goes, "Like gay?" And I was like, "It's like LGBTQ." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And like walks behind me, and I can see him like reading over my shoulder. And I was like, "This book has some heavy topics." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And so he goes to my mom and he goes, "Can I read Sis's book?" And my mom's like, "I mean, I've looked at it. I think it's fine. I think that if you want to step into that, you are allowed to, but be aware that there are some topics that you haven't been exposed to before." And so he goes through maybe like the first half of the book. He does not finish a book. And so he looks through and he's like, "I like their comic design. I don't really get what they're saying." And I was like, "Okay, that's fine." He goes, "But I pee on the floor too." And I was like, "You can't say that. You can't just say that." And he goes, "But me and Toby pee outside all the time." And I was like, this can't be the takeaway, but it's fine. It's fine. And so that was his like rendition of what the book was about, and so I was like, you know what? That's okay. That's how he sees it as a middle schooler. I see it differently. My friends see it differently. But what the important takeaway that I got from it was, there's many different perspectives, all from teens. And I felt that this book should stay in the teen section because I heard from queer teenagers that they liked it, that it helped them. I think that there's definitely some parts that parents might not want their children to read. And I think that a lot of the problems I've been hearing about, specifically, I remember the topic about Flamer. One of the issues was that it was marketed as a fun summer camp book. I don't think this is really marketed as anything different but a book an autobiography about a genderqueer person and their discovery. And so I feel like it's not a large ask for parents to look at the book and kind of see what it's about. I think that's my biggest point about this, is that I don't think it should be moved, because if a parent doesn't want their kid reading about queer identities and things like that, they can look at this and easily know that this is going to be a book about that. And also, one Google search, I looked at this. If you Google genderqueer by Maya Kobabe, tons of things come up, and you are instantly given the resources to decide, I don't want my child to read this book. And I don't think that because there is so much available to judge this book and decide about it, I don't believe that it's fair to take it away from other teenagers, because you have the ability to judge this book and go online and figure it out. I think if it were a book where if you looked it up and you went on these websites that Pat recommended to us and there was nothing about the book and you had no idea, there was no recommendations, and that's a different situation. But there's so much information available about the book that I feel as if it is fair to say, if you want to know what the book is about, there's enough information available to make that decision. And I think that enough queer teenagers like this book and said they liked parts of this book and they like how it was displayed, that for those teenagers, they deserve to have that book. And I will agree, there are some parts that, parents might not think are appropriate for teenagers. And that, I think, is exactly like you said, a discussion between parents and kids at home in a safe environment. And it's between that family to decide, I'm going to have this discussion with my kid when they're ready. And when they are going out and reading books, I need to be aware that this is what I know my kid is ready for. This is what my kid is ready for. And I think that for other kids whose parents, for a kid that has come out to their parents at 12, that parent knows, I need to find books that will show my kid that there is a safe way to go about this, that there is a healthy way to go about this. And I would hate for there to be a point where this was not considered a teen book, even though there might be a teen experiencing it or multiple teens experiencing it. That's just my whole idea of it, is if there's enough information to make it so parents can research it, I don't want it taken away from the teenagers who do need it and have said that it would have helped them and they liked how things were presented and that it taught them things. That's kind of where I stand.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Ms.
Well, I said before, I don't like graphic novels. I don't normally read young adult, but I'm glad I read this one. I thought it was very unique. This is not a person that you can put into a nice little category and say, well, she is a lesbian. Well, she's not really. And it kind of opened up my idea that you just can't flatly categorize people and assume you know everything about them. I thought it gave a very unique message, and this is good for kids, period. You don't have to get married. You don't have to have babies. You don't even have to have sex. What book is telling you that? I think of people who got married and regretted it greatly. People who had children and were not comfortable in that role, and the children did not have the best parenting. I suppose there are people who say, I don't want to have sex. So it's a message that I think is worth hearing. And I thought she had messages in here that were global, as far as not just for queer people growing up. And she struggled with some of this. She certainly struggled with her sexual identity. She struggled being uncomfortable in certain situations, and she learned how to deal with these, how to discuss her feelings with her doctors and with her peers, and then how to take control of her own body. So I just think she was kind of a hero in all of that. This is the 5th book we've had to reconsider. And so now I see articles all over. They just pop into my line of vision. And recently I read a July 25th, 2022 New Yorker magazine, an article by Casey Sepp, and it was concerning the book Go Ask Alice by Beatrice Sparks. And that was quite a controversial book when it came out. Basically deals with a young girl who gets into drugs. And then because she's in drugs, she gets involved with some real risky business. So almost done with the article, and this sentence leaped out at me. The sad truth about sensational topics is that someone's moral panic is often someone else's moral emergency. And I thought, oh my God, there it is right there. We have to be available for all the people in town, those who are not comfortable with these books and those who need these books. So I'll be voting to keep it right where it is.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I had one follow-up.
Sure.
I'm gonna vote to move the book tonight, but because I hear the comments that were made, I very much appreciate the perspective and the additional experience. But we don't want to take it away. I mean, moving it to the adult section doesn't take it away. They can still get access to the book. So, my only comment.
Any other comments?
I have comments, I'm just letting others go.
I have a comment, but it's more pertaining to the rating system. Is there a separate time for that?
That would be a separate topic, so maybe
Okay.
at the end.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Okay, looks like no other comments, so yes, Ms. Simon.
Okay. I have no particular order, so I will jump in. I don't know if anyone had a chance to watch the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing. I watched it a while ago. It was last year. I didn't realize it was that long ago, but it was. And well before we talked about this book. I was gonna play this, but I can't because I don't have internet. So I will just go into this. First of all, I'll ask, are we allowed to read from the book or are we not?
Well, I think it's fine.
Just asking.
Sure.
I've been told not to read aloud from these books before.
Well, maybe if we could do, I think one of the challenges is that some of the word and content was because this is open to the public. Nobody has consent. Nobody's given consent to hear some of the words and contents. So maybe some little bit of consideration. Yes.
I would say just a good rule of thumb is this is a public broadcast, and if there is some language that shouldn't be broadcast to the public, I would just be aware of that. You know, if we have to bleep it. And it's ironic because there's a difference between reading and speaking. And, you know, speaking broadcast is very different than just reading or a handout. So just be conscientious of that.
Yeah.
I'll be reading what was read at the Senate Judiciary Committee. Okay. At that hearing, there were two books talked about. I will obviously skip one of them because it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So this particular book, Senator Kennedy read. I got a new strap-on harness today. I can't wait to put it on you. It will fit my favorite dildo perfectly. And he went on to read more of it. But you get the idea because we've read the book, I assume. So we know where that's coming from. This particular interviewer then contacted the author and said, and I'll read from that. There's no questionable language. I'll just read from what they said so that I'm not summarizing it. I called up Kobabe today to talk about exactly what had happened. The interview has been edited and condensed for clarity. So, question is, so I take it you've seen the clip. The author said, I have seen the clip. Another trans activist friend texted it to me with a very, quote, congratulations and also I'm sorry, unquote, attitude. Question is, what was your first thought? The answer, the main thing was, it was very clear that the senator picked the one page out of a 240-page book that he thought would be the most shocking And it's interesting, he chose to read the words without showing the images, because the images on that page are not salacious at all. It's an illustration of me sitting at my job, which was in a library, reading text messages from someone I was dating. And I will again ask, are we allowed to show parts of the book?
Are you wanting to pass it out to committee members?
Well, I guess, my intent is to show what is on that page.
Well, I would think that anybody in the public that's interested in this topic can get the information. Because again, publicly, there may be people at home that would prefer that their children not see these images. Okay, and so they have that, they can make that decision for their families.
So is that a
So
yes
you're
or
welcome
no?
to, if there's something specific you'd like the board to look at, by all means.
Well, what I'm doing is answering this. That was a quote from the author saying that that was on the page. It wasn't salacious at all. So my intent is to show what's on that page.
Okay, yeah, by all means.
Okay, so on that page, this is the text and this is the page. It looks salacious to me. And it is not the most shocking page in the book. And I can give examples of it if you want. The next question further
Can I
down.
make a comment real quick? I think that, or can I?
Actually, no, let her go and finish and then we can do it. Thank you.
The next question down. The way protesters have described the book online, they make it sound like it's marketed to 6-year-olds, and the answer is, it keeps being called a children's book. Senator Kennedy implied it was a children's book, but I think that's coming from a misreading of a comic book form. Gender Queer is a comic and in full color, but that doesn't mean it's for children. I originally wrote it for my parents and then for older teens who are already asking these questions about themselves. I do not recommend this book for kids. The next question from the interviewer is, having read it, I definitely wouldn't give it to a grade schooler in my life, but I could see recommending it to my kid if they were 17, if they were looking into chest binding, for example. I'd rather they learn about how to do it safely, as you discussed in this book, instead of winging it. And along that line, I have a question. I know this book is in the teen section. There's a quote or a question, a quote that was put in the request for reconsideration that references a book. It's on page 136. And it has references and drawings from the book. Alison Bechtel wrote in Fun Home about discovering masturbation soon after her first period. I discovered it around the same age, and it goes on and on. The response, and if we want to ask Ms. Topfer or not, I don't know, that's up to you. The response was, Fun Home is a Stonewall Honor book and has a suggested age rating of 15 years or older. Where is that book in the library? Is that in the teen section, or is it the 15-year-old section, or is it in the adult section?
I don't know that, but I can find that out and let you know.
Well, I can tell you that as of what I looked for earlier, and let's see if it lets me get it without internet. It is it says PL graphic novels shelf.
Okay,
So is that,
that's adult
Adult.
graphic novel.
so if that is a book that is rated for suggested age rating of 15 years or older, why is it in the adult section?
Because the adult selector decided to select it, and they made the determination that they would put it in the adult section.
So
There's the subjectivity of it all.
So there are books that are rated for teens that have been put in the adult section on purpose.
Well, since there's no overarching rating system, basically there is an element of judgment.
Okay,
That
and
article.
we don't know specifically why that book and not another book, but
Right.
that book has a suggested age rating of 15 years or older, and yet it's in the adult section, correct?
Yes, because the adult selector selected it.
Okay. This, I can't play the clip because I don't have internet, but suffice it to say that you can watch it if you'd like. This Senate hearing had senators who did not want a book like this, no, this book in the teen section. So this isn't just one person in the community. This isn't one person's agenda. And again, I did not go searching this out. I had already seen this a year ago. It just happened to fall into this particular book. I have a particular question, and this honestly is really a question for a city attorney, but obviously I'll ask it through the chair. I'd like to know why this particular, both of these, not just one, are not considered pornographic. Is there a way that we can find out why these particular illustrations are not considered pornographic?
Well, I think we can pass it on to the city. I believe that, just in a quick response, but we can get from the city, I believe that the written materials that we've received from the city attorney on past items, I think paints a picture of maybe that might answer parts of the question, but I think we can pass it on.
It's a
Yes.
specific question that I have.
Yes.
So
So you can absolutely make that request through Pat or our city attorney to respond to, is this considered pornographic under state or federal law? I can give that to you. I don't know the legal definitions. I've read a lot about it, but not enough to make a determination, but absolutely you can just submit that through Pat.
Okay.
then I would suggest strongly that if this library advisory board is going to make a decision on a book, if there is a question, and I have a serious question over if it isn't pornographic, why is it not pornographic? And these are just two. It's not all of them. I'm just putting forth two of them. It's these two particular ones, and I can give the
Okay.
page numbers. If you'd like them, you can have those.
Oh,
Let's see. Like I said, it was in no particular order. And if you would like me to stop, you just let me know.
Well, I know Ms. Pilgrim did have a.
That's fine if you'd like to. Go ahead.
Come back. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just when you quoted Maya's like tweet, was it a tweet or
No, this is a
interview? Was it
an interview.
Okay.
Yes.
She or it was mentioned they took the one page. Technically, I think if we're speaking technically, I have the book open. There is page 170 and then there is page 171. And on 171, I think is where the prolificness is. On 170, it's the words. There is no naked characters on 170. So in this interview, I think it's fair to say that when they were referencing, they picked the one page that I think is most shocking. And I don't think it's prolific because it's just me reading the text. Technically, page 170, it is them just reading the text. The next page, the following page 171, that is where the scene takes place. So I think it's fair that in that interview when they said that, pertaining specifically to page 170, they were not incorrect in saying it was just me reading the text. Because on page 170, because it is two separate pages, that is what's happening on the page. So just not to say that they don't consider this prolific, but they were talking about page 170, not page 171. And I feel like that deserves to have a difference.
Okay, I think I put my notes, okay, I put my notes on that. No, I didn't. Okay. I'm gonna reiterate, that this, moving this book to the adult section is not taking it away. It is putting it in a different section of the library, which is across the room. And parents aren't even allowed to see what their children check out, let alone what their children pick up in the library. And saying that this book is easily quantifiable is not true, because parents can't tell their children when the library won't even tell the parents what the children are reading. So that's a problem. That is a big problem for me. We are, in every instance, in every book that has come before this board, we have leveled, and I say we because it's been a decision of the board, whether or not I agreed with it. It has leveled the playing field. And in the confessed interest of making things non-biased, that biases, because not everyone is the same. And by saying, well, you have to accept this because these other people want it, we can't, there's no way we can compromise. That's the exact opposite of what the professed unbiased leveling is doing. And I am fully aware that not everyone agrees with me. And like I said, if you want me to stop, you just tell me to stop. I understand that there are, it could be interpreted that there are messages in this book that are beneficial. But to say you don't have to get married, can I see that? Can I give you one more time? Just because I'm a visual person. You don't have to do this. And you don't have to do this. This book multiple times very clearly says, this is where you go to find gay sex and gay pornography. Why do you need that? Why do children need that? If they want that, great. Put it in a place where another teenager isn't going to pick that up without knowing that it's there. Thank you. I appreciate you. And then one last comment. I've made pretty much everything else in here. You've already read it. There's no reason for me to go back over it. What is the moral, if I can ask through the chair, what is moral panic and moral emergency? I don't understand that comment, and I really did want to understand it. So I'll ask you if.
Sure. Well, if that was your last comment, I can open back
Yes.
up if the speaker would like.
That was it.
Okay, thank you. And before we move on to Ms. Dahl, do you mind? Looks like Ms. Walsh had it.
Yeah, and I apologize, I don't have Mitch's memo, but I do recall when he was defining or explaining pornography, it was produced to be salacious and erotic. So in other words, it is used for sexual material, for the purpose of being sexual material and causing, and then also if it had no public value. So this story is obviously explaining what it's like to be somebody questioning their gender and what it's like to go through that process. So that's the determination. I'll try to find the memo. I know it went to all the board, but I do just recall off the top of my head, those were sort of two of the tests was this written or was this graphic used for the purpose of being erotic and causing that, I don't know what the word is.
Orient.
Yeah, thank you, that was it. Does it meet that qualification? And is there a public good? Is there a public reason or benefit to the material as a whole? So obviously a magazine with just nude pictures is not doing any public knowledge contribution.
And I do have a copy of that memo that Mitch prepared, and I can send that to the board.
Thank you.
And then, Ms. Dahl, your interpretation of that.
Right, when I read that sentence and it talked about someone's moral panic, I immediately thought of a parent whose child has come out as gay or maybe some other issue, and the parent is like not accepting of this, shocked, morally upset. And so that's how they would look at this, and perhaps they don't have tools to help them with that. The other case of someone's moral emergency is my child has just come out as gay. I'm supportive of that, but my child is suicidal. What am I going to do? So it really would vary on the situation, the makeup of the family, how it works. So to me, it was very clear that the same thing might happen, but the parents or the family would react in different ways, and the child themselves might react in a different way. Could I respond to something Ms. Simon brought up?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, you made the comment that parents can't find out what their children read. And so I looked at the May 24 draft of the collection development policy at the bottom of page 2, and it cites the privacy laws of the state of Alaska, which prohibit public libraries from revealing details of patrons' account, including those of minor children, to another individual. This library has gone further, however. A child may request that a permission note be added to their library account to allow parental access.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other comments?
I have a couple, if that's all right, in response to things that were just brought up.
Mhm.
So that, sorry, probably should have kept. And made you a copy. This particular illustration here is an elaborate fantasy for fantasizing about sexual arousement. It doesn't really specifically say. So to me, that's pornographic. And second, and again, that's why I'm asking that we get I get specific. That's why is that not pornographic? The other one was, I appreciate you pointing out that the privacy laws and allowing parents to see doesn't change what I said, though. Unfortunately, it doesn't change it. It may change what if a child has said, yes, my parent can see what I check out, but it certainly doesn't change a child walking into, and I mean a child. I looked up the definition because of that interview. I looked up the definition, and the legal definition of kid is a minor under 18. That's the legal definition. So when I say child, that's what I mean. A child walking into a teen section and picking that book up. Period. That's what I meant by my statement. Sorry, I'm done.
Ms. Walsh?
Just to clarify on your first question, I believe the memo stated you have to consider the body as a whole, not one panel.
Okay, any other? Perfect, thank you. Any other comments? Great, all right, thank you. With no other comments, then I think we're ready for to vote on whether or not we're going to move the book from the teen collection to the adult collection.
Yes, are we ready?
We're ready.
All
Wait, no.
right.
Can you read them? You were going to read the motion.
Oh, sure. The motion is to move the book Gender Queer by Maya Kababe from the teen collection to the adult collection. So the vote is to move the book from the teen to the adult collection. See. Oh, Govars.
No.
Okay. Hops.
No.
Pilgrim,
No.
Simon,
Yes.
Arnson,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes, no, excuse me.
Finnegan.
No.
Let's see, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5-2.
I saw,
Oh.
I'm still voting too.
Okay,
We decided that, right, on the last
Yeah.
meeting? Yeah. I still vote.
Echohawk.
No,
Okay,
thank you.
so 6-2, the motion does not pass.
Great, thank you. Okay, so next we're on to item 12B, programs on mental health. The board suggestions of possible partners for the 410 meeting. This one, this one does require a motion? I remember us having the discussion, but I'm unclear on this item.
Yes, I think it was a suggestion, it was a future agenda item that was suggested, I think, by Sherry Montgomery.
Yeah.
And so she was wondering because the decision by Aquila
Right.
to pull out was a pretty new one at the
Yeah.
time. She was saying, couldn't the library do programs on mental health? And since we're not the experts, I thought the best way to couch that future agenda item was to say, do the board have suggestions?
So maybe if
Or-
somebody would like to make a motion to direct staff to pursue partnerships between local behavioral health or substance use disorder.
And just suggestions about who those partners might be.
Yeah.
I think that's part of more, we were asking for kind of guidance.
Yeah, so do we
Yeah.
need a motion or do we just, I feel like this could just be an open discussion because there's no action necessarily.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable with that so yeah, yes, Ms. Hill.
Could I ask Ms. Walsh a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, could you let us know where this city is as far as the Aquila situation and what we might expect?
That's a really good question.
Well, it would help us if we're gonna discuss it.
I can tell you at this point, Aquila Inc. has transferred the Gateway buildings to RISE, which is a new nonprofit under Ketchikan Tribal Business Corporation. It is the intent of RISE to use that building to start medically assisted treatment, as well as substance abuse outpatient treatment. And so this is a program they had already had underway for the Cambria building. I can't remember, the Davis Ferry building on Cambria. They're moving that into the Gateway building. And they do have an intent, well, they have already partnered with Search out of Sitka and Petersburg. Search will be providing programs in that Gateway building also. As far as the suite of programs, that has not been finalized yet, and RISE has committed to communicating that with City Council once they have their final plan. The only thing I can say that is on track is the outpatient substance abuse treatment and the medically assisted treatment services that they were already planning, and they expect that to be launched at the end of the summer.
Okay, so RISE is doing outpatient alcohol and drug treatment? And this is for non-tribal members as well?
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
And that's all we have? Nothing in the mental health?
Not thus far for any other behavioral health issues. Obviously, we do have local providers and outpatient providers in the community. There are private providers either through Peace Health or through Ketchikan Indian Corp or through private services. And I know we are working to support any efforts that are going to go toward that, but right now we don't have a state contractor for severe mental health or severe mental illness treatment or I think it's the evaluation, the psychic eval for emergency holds. But we are taking care of that with Peace Health. They're covering that portion through their own system. This is a problem for all of Alaska and throughout the country. It's just lack of providers and lack of services and major need in our communities. That's pretty much where we are now.
Thank you.
And I would just add that WISH has a suite of services, and I think they're valuable resource. Ketchikan Wellness Coalition, another valuable resource. And of course, KIC also. So
RYC provides
RYC.
resources for both
Yeah.
families and children. They're an excellent behavioral health resource, and they focus on kids, obviously, but also offer some family services.
yeah, so maybe more has been.
I just had a thought.
Yeah.
And because the library hosts allows people to come and give classes for free. It might not be something that can happen, and it may be something you guys already tried. But what if reaching out to local, or even just making a flyer and having it near the desk or something, so just as a reminder for people that you guys have space for those classes, for those types of classes. Because I'm just thinking, like, if somebody who does that as a profession, and I'm trying to keep Sherry's intent in the back of my mind too, but if somebody has the ability to maybe teach a class on, ways to de-stress, healthy ways to de-stress, or resources for tough times, and you do it for money and mental health, just things I'm thinking of off the top of my head. But just kind of maybe even you doing it as a promotion opportunity to partner with the different agencies and say, hey, if you want to promote your business, just a reminder.
Well, they can't do that.
Oh.
So that's
Okay.
what, one of the rules
Yeah.
of the meeting room is you can't be promoting your own business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
But I understand.
resource,
General-
not the business, but the resources.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. That's good. Sorry.
That's
For
okay.
speaking out. Thank you for calling me out on that. Or just having like a program, like you guys kind of seem to have some themes, right, that you'll take on, and then seeing if you can plug people into some different activities. Did you host Rob Holstrom there? Was he doing a class?
He did
On
a series
healthy-
of classes on
not having sugar.
No, I don't think that was him. He did a class. He did the Great American Songbook class series. So,
Sorry, but just in terms of partners, that's what I was gonna say too, is just
Okay.
checking out those local, local providers that are licensed, and say, hey, we wanna do a mental health thing once a quarter.
okay.
Would you guys like to come and teach us how to pick out self-help books? You don't even need a provider to do that. You guys could teach that class.
No, no, we don't act in any way. But those are useful suggestions. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Ms. Goers and Ms. Walsh, unless you wanted to speak directly to her comments.
I was just gonna pull on that thread a little bit more.
Okay.
I can.
Similarly,
So you go ahead.
to Charlie's point, I'm curious, Pat, if you all currently host any support groups like AA, grief support, cancer support, things like that.
Oh, we have, well, actually, we didn't, people have come to us with ideas for support groups in the past. And I know there was a Parkinson support group, but they couldn't get enough people in. And I think that's the challenge. And for a while there, we did have a group, the Alzheimer's Association. And we were working with them to try and come up with a support group for caregivers of people who are experiencing dementia or Alzheimer's. And the person we were talking to actually left the organization, so we're kind of in the middle there. But that's something that because of personal experiences, I would really love to set something like that up. But yeah, that is the kind of thing where we could make that, we could publicize that a little bit more and say we have rooms available.
Yeah, similarly for NA or AA groups, and then trajectory from there of grief support and other places. I know a lot of the churches in town support those types of groups, but
Right.
The space at the library is just so lovely.
And Ms. Walsh?
Mr. Chair, just to pull on that thread a little bit more, you can reach out, and this is more of a PSA, to the Ketchikan Wellness Coalition, and Officer Derek McGarrigan is actually a trainer in crisis intervention training. And so he's done a mental health first aid course for city employees. And so if that's something you'd like to pursue with the Officer of Ketchikan Wellness actually coordinates that. And they have trainers that can send to your place of business. So we've done a few sessions with city staff, and I think we had 20, 30 people in some of the classes. So it's a great course. And it's for us to be aware of when an employee or a customer may be facing a mental health crisis and how to get those resources to them. And so it was a beautiful story. One of our department heads, she came to me the next day and she said, I used the intervention training. I actually talked somebody down yesterday and I knew what to ask and I knew the right questions to ask and how to get them where they needed to be and point them to resources and walk them through it. And she said, I actually used all the steps that he gave me and implemented the next day. So it's really a great resource. And like I said, KWC can take care of that. And we've got trainers here to help with your groups.
All right. Any other comments for item 12B?
I'd just like to add one more name to that little pile of them. Ketchikan Youth for Change would also probably be a good thing to. I'm part of that group and definitely looking for spaces to advocate for stuff has been great. And then also on the topic of the mental health first aid, they actually do a teen mental health first aid at the high school for all sophomores and advisory. I was certified this last year, so definitely a very cool program. And if that needed outreach, that could be another thing that is done in one of the spaces. Just a thought.
Cool.
And just my quick comments is since the goal is a healthy community, and particularly when it comes to our children, is making sure that our children have everything that they need so they're less likely to have developed behavioral health or opioid or other things. If you look at I believe it's the Center for the Prevention of Abused and Neglected Children and also the CDC, you'll see a list of risk factors. And it clearly outlines the proven things that are likely to put children at greater risk. And it's not, there's no guarantee, but you're saying that these variables have a greater likelihood of these children being either harmed or neglected, which can lead to other things. And that list has a lot to do with poverty, public services, parks, recreation centers, the things that are critical community infrastructure and family support. So I just recommend, as we're having this discussion, take a look at that list. It's all things, my own personal commentary on that I'll add at the end, but it's all things that make a community vibrant, and they benefit our children, they benefit our families. So just something I want to throw out there as part of this discussion, because I do think it's important. Okay, next is item 12C. New policy on children's group visits to the library.
Yeah, so this actually originally came out of the discussion this year and in a few previous years with the rec center about the summer camp program, because it was overwhelming. Even to have the groups of 25 who would come in last year each morning, that could be a really overwhelming thing for our space, the children's library space. But also, in addition to that, we occasionally get daycares or teachers who bring in classes, and they don't necessarily know to tell us ahead of time. And so this policy on group visits to the library is just, I think, a way to ask teachers and daycare providers to give us some notice so that we can work together to come up with activities for the visit that will really benefit the kids. So we looked at what the museum does. We also looked at what other libraries in the state have as far as group visits policies, and just came up with what we have here in your packet on group visits for the library. So I thought I would just run that by you guys and see what you thought.
Has this been circulated to known entities?
No, because it's a grant.
And I guess then that's my question. How might this be circulated to known entities?
Well, I think certainly passed along to the schools and the daycare centers, and just encouraged. And I guess it's sometimes not easy to get a hold of the teachers. We try and do something before the beginning of the school year, for teachers to just let them know what the library has that they might find useful. And this could definitely be part of that. But yeah, we're really interested in, I mean, of course, it would be on our website, and we would encourage people to just let us know. I think it wouldn't have to be all of this all at once, but it could just be, hey, if you want to bring your class or your group of children into the library, let us know, a couple of weeks ahead of time, so that we can work together to make it a really great experience.
I have a question, Pat.
Oh, yes, Ms.
Sorry,
Hobbs?
Omnivoice. So when we were in Head Start, we would regularly take field trips to the library. Were those always like prearranged, scheduled, that you guys were aware of?
I think they were regularly scheduled.
Okay,
So,
so
yeah, they had worked that out beforehand.
so this hasn't really been such an ongoing issue. This has kind of become an issue recently.
Yes, like it came to a head with the summer camp visits, but there are occasions in which either daycare groups or classes will just show up.
Okay.
And we'd like to discourage that, because we may have other things going on, and it can be a scramble to try and put together a program that's really meaningful for the group. And having a little time beforehand to work with the teacher or the organizer would help us to provide a better experience.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Arnson?
I'm just curious to know how this will be enforced.
Well, I think it would be like anything else, like our meeting room policy. If somebody gets in touch with us, or do you mean if somebody just shows up?
Yeah, you have 30 kids
Oh,
standing
believe
at
me,
your gate,
and we've had it.
and
So,
turning them away is gonna.
we rarely turn people away.
No,
It's
but
not-
if this policy is in place and that happens, how would you handle it?
I think we would handle it the way we handle when somebody calls for a meeting room the day before the meeting. Is like, if we can do it, we will do it. And as long as we don't have a big children's program going on when the 30 kids show up, and as long as there's a way to incorporate them into whatever we're doing, we will try and do it. So we're not in the business of turning people away. And the policy is just a guide to making this an incredible experience for them, instead of kind of a rush and ad hoc experience for them. So we're never interested in turning people away.
So if this is in regards to big groups of children, or
Mhm.
big groups, right?
Mhm.
So like the requirement to have one adult for every 5 children.
Yeah.
How is even a daycare gonna manage that? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's gonna, like, the way that it's written right now, it
Mhm.
doesn't seem like it's very friendly or encouraging to those groups to come. Because when you have a daycare, I think the rules are like 1 to 8. And especially, and ages matter in there as well. And knowing the large groups that they have over there at the rec center,
Mhm.
and all of those youth that are managing or running that program are certified, they have CPR, they're trained with those young people. So that just seems like it would be restrictive for large groups, and tell them basically, you can't come here.
Oh, well, that certainly wasn't the intent. We could reword it, but I think these guidelines, this policy, I think, is a valuable policy in arranging for group visits. And basically, it's a matter of communication. Let us know beforehand. Don't show up with 30 kids and just think we're going to be able to drop everything and do it.
I know.
Now, we'll try.
End up in my house with 30 kids. I'd be like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
One comment that in our experience with this is that's why I was curious about the Head Start, is because it was scheduled for,
Mhm.
at least on the school side, and they requested parent volunteers.
Mhm.
So they had, they would make a memo saying, in order for us to go on this field trip, we need X amount of parent volunteers from this time for this library field trip. So that was our experience with a group participating.
Great, thank you. Ms. Gomes?
Similarly, I would suggest adjusting the adult to child ratio to align with camp or daycare standards, just to allow a little more flexibility there. I think, as Charlie mentioned, I'm nearly positive that our daycare standards for children ages preschool, so 3 and up, is 1 to 8, but I could pull up that manual. So I know the camps have standards, and then the daycares have state standards. So I would align that just to whatever the state standards are, because those folks are well equipped to manage that volume as per state guidelines.
Okay, thank you for that suggestion.
If I may, just my perspective on this is at a camp or a daycare center, that's what they're doing, and they're trained to do that. That's, you know, the daycare providers are there to care for to the kids that are in the daycare. Well, the library has a lot of other responsibilities and patrons coming in and out. Some of them could be larger groups, some of them could be families, and so I would say that we'd have to consider the logistical likelihood that the libraries could provide less of a positive experience for everybody, because they're so stretched thin, because they do have other responsibilities, other people that they have to take care of in the community. So I feel it's appropriate to be a little bit more conservative in this regard, because their roles are broader than what we would see in folks that they show up to take care of these kids, and that's their primary responsibility. So that's my. Yes, ma'am.
It says a children's group is defined as containing at least 8 to 25. Does that mean that this policy is not applying to 1 to 7?
Right, 1 to 7 is something that is a little easier to handle. And a little easier to incorporate into a children's room that already is containing families. So yes, and we have family groups that are between 1 and 7.
Okay.
Or 1 and 8.
So is that, you might want to make that clear, because I can say that of these groups listed, I can think of at least 1 or 2 that would be the 1 to 7 range. And actually, the other question that goes with that is, it says on the 3rd bullet point that if the group is over 25, then there's a feasibility determined. I assume that's the library that's determining that?
I think
It's
a conversation, because it would be what's your expectation for what you would like to do in the library, and also what else does the library have going on at the time, that kind of thing. What kind of adult support are you able to provide? That all of those factors going into a discussion about, is this a feasible thing? Is it a feasible thing for them? Is it a feasible thing for us?
So who determines it?
It's a conversation.
Because it's just not clear, and I would assume as a leader, as a group leader, I would say, so do we need approval or do we not? To me, that says, yeah, we need to get approval for over 25. But
We definitely need a conversation. We need like a notice and conversation about it.
So it's under 25? Do you still have to, there's still a feasibility determination?
I think there would be, just in the sense of, if we have our big wingding going on at the same time, it may not be feasible. And so that conversation, say a couple weeks before, would enable us to say, hey, we've got this big thing scheduled. This may not be the best day or time. Is there another day or time that works for you?
And I applaud trying to work with them. I think that's a great thing. To me, it just has so many different messages. We welcome, we serve everybody, but we have these things. And it's unclear to me whether you have to get approval or you don't, and what's maybe a graph of this many, and if you don't wanna make that
I was
clear,
gonna say,
that's one thing,
I
but
think it is gonna be like a case by case basis to a certain
Yeah.
extent.
then maybe say that, I don't know, maybe say. instead of-
Okay, well, that's what, yeah, I
Anyway.
think that, okay,
That was just my input.
okay.
Go ahead. I'm good.
Any other comments?
I have a
Yes,
question.
Mhm.
So, contain the bullet point one, when it says containing 8 to 25,
Mhm.
if it's just one adult with 7 kids,
Mhm.
that is it's easier to fit that in.
It would be more like a large family, and we definitely have large families that come in.
So, but when it's the larger groups, there's
Mhm.
kind of a need for the 1 to 5 ratio.
Because they're unrelated, and the counselor or whoever the adult are that are with them aren't necessarily serving in as authoritative as a role as a parent or guardian with 7 kids.
I'm raising my hand. Grant. So I've had the opportunity to work with and draft a lot of policies in the different roles I've had.
Mhm.
And one thing that's always, at least how I've always looked at them, how I've always viewed them, as I've always drafted them, is that they're just guidelines. They set the tone. They ask for, this is basically an ask of the community
Mhm.
and the different groups and the different organizations. Here's the ask. We're gonna do everything we can to accommodate. But it's just guidelines, and I caution against being too rigid because then you can put yourself in the position to where you may not be able to accommodate because we were too rigid in the policies. So I think as an ask, that everything here is reasonable, and it sounds to me that if there's one-offs or different scenarios, is that the library is going to do what I've heard, what I've seen it always do is just try to accommodate. So that's how I interpreted this, was just an ask, and as with all policies, or well, not all, but many, you want to be a little flexible and just have the guidelines out there so everybody kind of knows. We're going to try to keep it in here, but if we need to move it around, we can. So there was nothing in here that I was personally that stood out as problematic. I recognize that, as I've already mentioned, the library staff has responsibilities to serve the entire community, and on the day-to-day, and so they have to think logistically how to best do that with the limited staff that they have. So I thought this was reasonable. Any other comments?
I said one other one.
Sure.
The last bullet point, so they're not gonna check out. Is that the normal? They go in, they do but they don't check out?
Well, let's see, it says, if you would like children to check out materials during your visit, please inform the librarian during your initial contact. That's
Right.
part of the conversation.
But it's not assumed, it's just that they need to say that ahead of time, right? That's what that means.
I think it has to be a conversation. It has to be part of the conversation.
Right, that's what I
Yes.
meant. Yeah, okay.
I have an ask. Just because as a teen, a lot of stuff says you need to be an adult to do this, and then sometimes you have the conversations like, oh, well, you just need to like be certified, and if you're this age, you just need a waiver. Bunch of stuff like that. On bullet point 4, when it says please have one adult present for every 5 children, is there any way to change that language to one adult or like certified individual, like the people working at the rec center who are mostly teens, if they are certified and are able to do that job at the rec center, is there a way to change the language so that that is more inclusive for certified people who are registered, like to do work at a daycare or?
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely bring that back.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments on this agenda item? Okay, I lost my agenda, so.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
What happened
Okay,
then?
thank you. This was agenda item 12C. Any other comments? And you were just looking for suggestions and.
Right, just a discussion. So yeah, this is all very helpful.
Okay, anything else? Okay, so now we're going to move to item 12D, upcoming projects. First item, renovation of Children's Community Garden, First City Rotary Project. This sounds amazing. Tell me all about it. Tell us all about it.
So, and I have to preface this by saying, yes, I am on the board of First City Rotary Club. I did not participate in the decision that this would be the signature project this coming year. That was incoming President Ben Edwards' decision. We're really happy about it, but I did not participate in that decision in any way. So anyway, First City Rotary Club always does one fairly big visible project each year with the proceeds from the duck race. The proceeds from the duck race also go toward things like dictionaries for third graders, and we've got vocational education scholarships and UAS scholarships and other community things. But the big project this coming year is going to be making some changes to the Children's Community Garden, which is that big space that is outside the children's library. Our great champion for that being a primarily garden space was Rebecca Jackson, who did an amazing job as library assistant, one in children's. However, she's no longer in Ketchikan. And so that kind of leadership, kind of champion role has kind of gone begging. So we're thinking about changing the nature of the space. And Rebecca Brown, who is our outreach librarian, has done some of this already, changing it into a children's sensory garden. And part of it being a children's sensory garden is perhaps installing some outdoor musical instruments, like the musical instruments that are at Buggy's Beach. And so we had a really successful duck race this year, and we think we are going to be able to install maybe one of the lovely instruments here that will be for children to play outside in the sensory garden. That'll be one aspect. We will still have some garden boxes, and we are thinking of benches and that kind of thing. We don't know how much of that we're going to be able to do with the First City Rotary money, but this could be the first phase of a multi-phase project. And we're very excited about it, and just wanted to kind of let you know that this was coming up. So any questions or anything about that?
Questions or comments?
I have a question.
Oh,
Ms. Hobbs?
Is there going to be any public vote or input of which of these structures that they get to vote on, or is it going to be like budget related or that?
I think partially budget related, of course. But yeah, I think public input would be a really great idea as far as we're deciding to make changes. I think sort of like getting those sketches out there so people can say, oh, I think this works, or I think this is a terrible idea. I think that's really great. Like I said, these instruments are probably going to be what First City Rotary does, but that's only going to be a small part of what we hope eventually is going to be a completely refurbished space. And we definitely want community input on all that.
Ms. Pilgrim and then Sorensen.
Oh, I just wanted to say that sounds like an amazing idea, and I'm very happy to see it. I know my brothers particularly love the rocks, so I hope there's still some of the rocks. They like picking them up.
There will always be rocks.
So that's my only comment, is I hope there's still some rocks.
Thank you. Ms. Sorensen.
You were talking about these community gardens and, you know, when someone leaves and then they're not maybe kept up as much. So I'm with Miss Pilgrim on it too. Like, this is wonderful, exciting, great for the youth. But I also sit on the grants committee for the borough. And one of the things that happened this year was we had Ketchikan Wellness Coalition asked for 2, and it was determined that our policy is that we only give one per organization.
Mhm.
And say they withdrew their community gardens application, so I don't know if you've had any conversations with the Wellness Coalition lately, but they may be looking for space to get involved in
Oh.
something like that.
Okay, I will put that down.
For what you will.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? I'll also just say that this looks amazing, and personal thanks to the First City Rotary for putting the library on the list of projects, because this is fantastic.
I will pass that
Yeah,
on.
thank you. This is great. Okay.
And then the second upcoming project is something I've been talking about for years. But we're finally, I think, getting some traction. The Ketchikan's newspapers, past and present, are amazing repositories of our local history. And right now, they are only available in microfilm. And there's no index. And we have an ancient microfilm machine. And I am very interested in getting the newspapers digitized. We have newspapers going back to the 1890s, all the way through to the present. I've been talking to Tina Williams at the Ketchikan Daily News, because the Ketchikan Daily News in its various iterations has been around since 1934. We also have a long run of the Ketchikan Chronicle, which was another major paper. And so I want to work out with Tina, digitizing those more recent papers, and then those older papers that have perished and are no longer in copyright. Definitely want to get all those digitized so that they are available for people to search for their family history, for Ketchikan's history. And yes, so I am pursuing working with the Daily News and with other organizations and vendors to find a way to get this done, so that we have a searchable, digitized newspaper database for Ketchikan.
That's excellent. Any questions, Ms. Philbin?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you know what the timeline for that would look like 1 year, 5 years? Like, I know this can take lots of time to do.
Well, more like it takes lots of money. So it would be the thing where we get estimates from various companies that do this work. And then we select a company, and then we do some fundraising. So there are various local organizations where we can fundraise. There's not a lot of national or federal money out there, which is sad, just because there's so many newspapers in the country, and I think it would be overwhelming. But we seek out grants and other ways of funding this little by little, and doing a continuing effort. I think doing a pilot project of about 10 years, that would be fairly recent, just to do a proof of concept. People come in and they could search for those 10 years and be inspired to help support the effort to increase the digitization and the number of years that we can get digitized. So yeah, take some time, but it would be great just to get it kicked off and started.
Yeah, I only asked because I know the Alaska Studies class at KI, that would be such an amazing resource for that. And so
Yeah.
thinking, I was like, couple years, I know it might be more, but just to have the thought.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Similar, tons of support for this effort. I last year underwent a very extensive 100-year research for an organization in town, and I know many others like Tongass, not Tongass, First Bank is celebrating their 100th anniversary this year, and it will just perpetuate. And the museum was unbelievably helpful,
amazing.
and were amazing because of what they curated, and yet they were not digitized, curated in the same way. And I see tremendous value, and the education piece of that, didn't even quite think of, oh yes, Alaska Studies, but there's so many organizations in town, even just the hobbyist would really love that. So it's
Absolutely.
it's exciting.
Yes.
It is exciting.
hope we hear more about
Yeah.
that.
Oh, totally. You will. You'll like ad nauseam. You'll hear stuff.
And real quick, is there a software package that does all this?
There are
And I'm sure
companies.
that this is the cost, right?
Yeah.
Involved?
Oh, the cost involved would we would outsource that
Okay.
work.
Oh, gotcha.
So it would be outsourced to a company that would do the initial digitization and then the OCR, which would be the optical character recognition that would allow it to be searchable.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, so there are a variety of companies that will do that.
I see.
And it's just a matter of finding the right one for us.
Sorry.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
so that makes me think, do you know at all, like, price ranges? Like, do they vary from 500 to 5 million? Like, do you have any kind of
To do it
beat on that?
to do it the fancy way, which is what I was originally thinking, like, oh, it's gonna just be great, and it'll be article level, and it'll be awesome. That was gonna be about $400,000. And that was pre-pandemic, so it might be even more. However, I think we can do it in not quite so fancy a way, maybe page level, which is still really useful. And I think we're looking at a couple $100,000. So, yeah,
Thank you.
yes.
A lot of eyebrows went up when you said. Oh my goodness.
It's our history.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. We need to get it. Well, this is great. Thank you. This is fantastic. Yeah, I've got mine. It's buried in this. Okay, so that wraps up our regular agenda. So we'll go ahead and move to board member comments. I'll start with Ms. Simon.
I'll pass.
Okay.
And I'll wait for the end if we.
Sure. Ms. Gover.
I want to just express some congrats to the staffing changes. That's just super exciting and feels really good. And I know that I've heard many times in like city council meetings and otherwise, grow your own. And I see that here and that's fantastic. Really thrilled for y'all and thrilled for you folks in your new positions. Congrats.
Yeah.
I said everything I wanted to say tonight, and I just thank you all for listening.
So Ms. Govar's took it right out of my mouth. So thank you to the staff for rolling with the changes and keeping the doors open and making that. I've spent a lot more time in recent days in the children's room with my little guy. I apologize. I know everything is a nail to him right now. So anything in his hand is a hammer. I'm trying to stem the flow with the pounding, but you've all been very tolerant of that.
Is there a time limit to these comments? Like, I will keep it short. I was just
Yeah.
okay. This was more related to the rating system, but there wasn't really a good time to like interject it. But I've been very, very lucky with finding a community of teen representatives on library advisory boards. I was published in this library catalog. I didn't even
The
know.
American Libraries.
I didn't
It's the
even-
magazine.
I didn't know what it was, but my English teacher, who was a former librarian, she came up to me and she goes, "Did you know you're in this?" And I was like, "No, what is this?" And I found out and it was so cool. But someone from North Dakota, I think, saw that from one of her librarians and she goes, "This is another name." And so she reaches out to me on Instagram and she goes, "Are you Sophia Pilgrim?" I'm like, when you get a random request saying, "Are you this person?" you go, "Oh." But I was like, yes. And she goes, "Are you the teen rep on your library advisory board?" And I was like, "Oh, yes, I am." And she's like, "Adding you to this group chat." And it was of over 154 different kids serving on a form of a library advisory board, or some are school library advisory boards for those who have it. And it's been amazing. I've had such eye-opening conversations about things. And recently, one of the things we've all been talking about is rating systems. Recently, the biggest conversation leader was this gentleman, Omaron Smith from Texas, and his library did made a rating system about 2 years ago. And he was talking about a lot of the negative effects. And he said, "I actually voted to put it in, and I thought there was a lot of good that can come from it." And then he was talking about the negatives, and some people said, "Well, we have one, and it kind of works in like the ways that we wanted it to, but also we see the negatives." And so a lot of what I was thinking and what I'd asked them about was, so it's either you make a rating system or you don't. There's really no way to kind of have a half done rating system, and do the negatives outweigh the like, do the pros outweigh the cons? Like, do you see enough good to think that libraries need one? And a lot of the responses was, I don't think all libraries need one, but I think some people need one. And so it really, they said it varied from community to community. And that's like what I took away from it, is looking at this community. Do the people in this community feel as if they need a rating system? Do the people that go to the library feel they need to be directed on certain topics and such? And that's really where I stood on the whole rating system idea. And I just kind of wanted to put that out there, that I'd learned that it was very, very interesting. And then I was also it's a Google group chat, and it's just Alaskan kids. And I don't know how many times I see an Alaskan kid in the big group chat say something. I'm like, Alaska, look at us go. Because there's only about like 13 of us all across the state. And hearing from them has been so nice. And especially about this book, because this book had been challenged in a lot of places in Alaska. And so talking about them saying, oh, well, this was presented in my meeting. Oh, this was presented in my meeting. And I'm like, these are all really good things to talk about. So just wanting to share that I have that community that's helped me learn so much about proceedings and such, and I'm just very happy to have learned that I can contribute there. And then moving on my very long talk, I am so happy with how the teen room director, I'm so sorry, I forgot your official title.
I'm the youth services.
Youth services, how she redecorated the teen room. I talked to her, I had conversations with her, told her about how we love the comfy chairs, things as such, and the way it was reorganized is just so welcoming, and I'm just so very, very happy with how that turned out. So thank you. Just wanted to reiterate that. Also, I heard nothing but glowing reviews from my friends about the drag makeup, the teen one. I was out of town for it. I could not go, unfortunately, but I heard nothing but glowing reviews from it, so I'm very happy for those who got to go. Also very proud and excited for the staff changes and the upward momentum and all that, and I'm very happy for it. And thank you guys so much all the time for making the library welcoming and just all around amazing. So thank you for that. And then thank you, Pat. I've had so many questions this month, and I've been there relentlessly. I'm sure she's sick of my face at this point. But thank you for your kindness and your compassion with helping me get used to these things. So first.
Thank you. Ms. Dahl.
Well, I'm really old, and we old people have problems with technology. So I'm challenging myself. And this week I made folders in my email. And so we're talking, a lot. And so I put things in folders, and the big folder is Friends of the Library. But this was a trip down memory lane. It's wonderful. Talk about history. But what really just leaped out at me was how we got through COVID. And during COVID, I had a hard time not gloating when I talked to my friends down south who had a locked library and they had no access to books. And I thought our librarians did everything they could, and we always had access to books. So things morphed over time and things were done differently, but it just shows what the library staff does. You don't say, oh, we can't do that. So sorry, no books today. And I just see that in everything you do. So thank you so much. We have a beautiful library, but I tell people it's the librarians.
By the next meeting, I'll be harnessing AI. Thank you. Ms. Hobbs.
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you guys for bearing with me remotely. I was able to set this up. I don't know if Pat told you, the girls and I were rear-ended by a drunk driver on Monday. So that's why we're not here tonight. So, yeah. And I also wanted to comment, I don't know if Robert's still in the room. Thanks to Robert for sorting out the Friends of the Library dollar cart and all of the funds that got transferred over. And now he's the official guy. So congratulations to him. And also DeMello, he's over there too. Congrats to DeMello. And we are really looking forward to all the changes in the outdoor garden area. As long as you don't get rid of the rhubarb. That's my one request.
Okay, keep moving.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Simon.
Study in contrasts. thanks to Ms. Arnson for pointing out that not everyone agrees with everything, and there's nothing wrong with examining that disagreement. I can't say how many times and how many wonderful comments I have had regarding book challenges. I'm not going away because I firmly believe that what I'm doing, I will stand before the judgment of God one day. And I am doing what I believe I need to do. I haven't done anything except shown a light. And if people are afraid of that light, that's not my fault. I appreciate your comments because they are rare. Not that that will change what I do and why I do it. Safe study and contrast. We talk about, and I think it's great that the library get involved with mental health issues and presenting mental health resources. I have read several studies that point out sexualization of children, specifically in images and words, has an effect on the size of their brains, let alone other mental health issues. So I just want to point that out. That's all.
Thank you. And then for me, I really appreciated this meeting. I feel like we accomplished a lot of very cool things and we had a great discussion. I did bring up the risk factors for children and the efforts that is a community-wide effort to care for our children, make sure that they're safe. There's not a single person in this community, a single adult that doesn't care deeply about the well-being of our children. Nobody, we're all universal. If there's one thing that we all, as adults, we have to do is take care of the kids. So my personal commentary on that is that, one thing that stood out to me was how when industry wants to make some moves in Alaska, we have a lot of momentum to make those moves. As a matter of fact, I'm going to call out the Willow Project, specifically with ConocoPhillips. And I've never seen my entire state legislature, my entire federal legislature get so excited and push something through and have promo videos and dancing and eating cake. It was a lot of energy, a lot of energy. And I would strongly urge that as a community, we demand that same kind of energy of getting funding into the programs that support our children, that support behavioral health, that support opioid prevention. And it's something that, because this has been an important topic, I want to just bring that up and give my own personal commentary. The other piece is different points of view are important. Democracy is a very can be very noisy and ruckus, and that's the best part of it. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the vote. It comes down to the vote of various bodies in the community that paint a picture of where the community's at. We have a wide selection of community members here. We have a wide selection of community members at City Council, the school board, and you can see kind of where everybody's at as far as where the community's head is at. And I think that that gives us an indication of whether or not we are truly supporting the community as best we can by paying attention to those things. And so I do think that we are doing good work here, and we are doing, we're serving the community well. So that's all I had. Thank you very much. And I think with that, we'll be adjourned.
No, future agenda items.
Oh, future agenda items. Oh, I
don't have any, but somebody did.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to item 14, future agenda items. And we'll start, anybody have anything? Ms. Hops, do you have anything?
Was this, Sophia, when you wanted to add your item?
Yes,
if
that's when I could add it.
Yes.
Just maybe discussion is what I should more ask for.
Mhm.
That when we have a book that is requested for being moved from a section or requested a book is discussed, we as the board take responsibility that if we're voting on the book, we should read the book in its entirety.
Seems reasonable. Yeah, okay, so just add it for a discussion item.
Yeah, I don't believe that any one of us doesn't read the book.
Right.
I simply, one thing that again, all of us teen reps have realized is not all of these boards do have a thing that says you have to read the book, and having that is just helpful.
Okay, okay. Thank you. All right, anything else for a future agenda item? Excellent, thank you. All right, so now we are adjourned.